When President Joe Biden announced a new $800 million relief package for Ukraine in April, quite a lot of questions were thrown around. Many were disappointed that the United States had earlier refused to approve fighter jets for Ukraine, and they really wanted to know the details of this new deal and which weapons were included. Unfortunately, fighter jets were again absent from the list, but little did we know that the US had included a special gift in the package that would blow out Russian forces and give Ukraine an unprecedented advantage in the war. What exactly is this gift? It's called the M777 155mm Howitzer, a heavy artillery weapon developed jointly by the US Army and Marine Corps. And from what we've gotten so far, this long-range artillery is raining hell on Russian forces in the Donbas region. Join us in today's video as we take a look at the M777 cannon and its role in the Russia-Ukraine crisis. What's the M777 155mm Howitzer like? How many is the United States sending to Ukraine? How effective has it been for Ukraine on the battlefield? And finally, why is the US calling for caution? Let's find out together. What's an M777 155mm Howitzer like? The M777 is an ultra-lightweight artillery that provides lethal long-range firepower and support to military ground forces. Manufactured by BAE Systems, the M777 is about the deadliest artillery gun ever built. It has a maximum strike range of 18.6 miles or 30 kilometers, making it the world's longest ranged cannon. Additionally, this relentless beast can unleash about 5 rounds of terror per minute. Currently, the United States military forces operates 2 types of 155mm howitzers: the self-propelled M109 Paladin howitzer and the towed M777 155mm howitzer. The latter is what is being shipped to Ukraine. At 7,700 pounds, the towed M777 is 9,000 pounds lighter than its predecessor, the M198 howitzer. This allows it to be airlifted by most military helicopters, such as the MV-22 Osprey or CH-53E Super Stallion, and can also be towed by an average pickup truck. For cross-country deliveries, the M777 155mm howitzer can be transported by aircraft or ship. Also, we should point out that the towed M777 is offered in 2 variants: the M777A1 and the M777A2. The A1 model works with a digital fire control system. Meanwhile, the A2 features a software update that supports the use of Excalibur projectiles. The precision-guided A2 variant uses the Global Positioning System, also known as GPS, to identify targets. Regardless of the variant, though, a typical M777 is operated by a group of 5 to 10 artillerymen. The M777 155mm howitzer was approved back in 1997, but it wasn't until November 2002 that the US military placed its first order of 94 M777 systems. 2 years later, in 2004, the U.S. Marine Corps completed operational testing of the equipment, using 4 production models M777 to fire nearly 12,000 artillery rounds. Following the success of the test, the military placed a new order for 495 systems. In October 2006, 18 M777 155mm howitzer systems were airlifted to the U.S. Army's 2nd Battalion, 11th Field Artillery based in Hawaii. U.S. military divisions in Afghanistan and Iraq also got a share of the bounty. Over the next decade, the U.S. military will go on to purchase approximately 1,000 M777 155mm howitzers for the Army and Marine Corps, and since then, the equipment has become a mainstay on different battlefields across the world, scoring huge successes on numerous occasions. During the war against ISIS in Syria, men of the U.S. Marine Corps fired 35,000 artillery rounds of the M777 on high-level ISIS targets. In 5 months, they fired more rounds than any other Marine or Army artillery battalion did since the Vietnam War. Currently, it is being used by the ground forces of different militaries across the globe, including Australia, Canada, and India. Ukraine is the latest member country to join this exclusive list, following the equipment aid announced by President Joe Biden some months ago. If you have reached this far in the video, we would like to give you a huge thanks. You can extend your support by subscribing to the channel and turning that notification bell on so you don't miss any of the content we upload. Comment down below "I subbed" for your chance to be entered in our monthly shoutout giveaway. How many is the United States sending to Ukraine? As part of the $800 million relief package, Ukraine will receive 90 M777 155mm Howitzers from the United States. More than half of these heavy artillery guns have touched down in Ukraine at the time of making this video. And before the Ukrainian ground forces could hit their first target with the weapon, the US announced it would deliver another round of security aid to Ukraine, containing 18 M777 155mm Howitzers, worth a total of $100 million. However, the total number of M777s expected in Ukraine sits at 118, with Canada and Australia said to deliver 4 and 6 units respectively. The Netherlands has also pledged to donate 6 PZ-2000 self-propelled howitzers, while France has promised to send between 10 and 12 truck-mounted 155 artillery. How effective has it been for Ukraine on the battlefield? Before now, Ukrainian forces relied on combat drones and Javelin missiles to hit Russian targets outside their line of sight. These methods are actually helpful because they help to cripple the advancement of Russia's ground forces, effectively keeping Ukraine in the fight. But experts believed that a more lethal long-range weapon was needed to really take the fight to Russia and cut out the supply line, especially in a critical battle area like Donbas. And that's what prompted the United States to donate the M777 155mm Howitzer to Ukraine. We do believe that these howitzers will be very, very effective in helping the Ukrainians in the Donbas fight, a top U.S. military official said. From the onset, it was obvious that the M777 Howitzer was an upgrade on the 122 and 152mm artillery formerly used by the Ukrainian forces. However, recent reviews by military professionals have offered us more insights into the effectiveness of this weapon. R.G. Powelson, a military writer, describes the M777s as a game changer. Retired U.S. Major General Brian McKiernan predicted that the M777s would effectively blow out the Russian supply line and ultimately take the sting out of Russia's offensive assault. What this provides for the Ukrainian forces is lethal long-range fires that are very effective against everything from lightly armored vehicles to support vehicles, and in particular, the Russian indirect fire system, their artillery and rockets, Brian said. Amplifying this belief, a senior advisor to Ukrainian Armed Forces Commander General Valery Zaluzhnyi said that the M777 155mm howitzer helped break down the Russian military units. Ukraine's defense minister, Oleksiy Reznikov, confirmed this in a recent statement, saying Ukrainian gunners using the M777 howitzer have been hitting their targets with the first shot. And that explains why Russia's 40-mile-long military convoy that camped on the outskirts of Kiev was stalled. But how come the Ukrainian forces are getting so much success with the weapon they've only recently acquired? Well, it's all down to effective training. The United States military has been gracious enough to conduct training for select members of the Ukrainian army. More than 310 Ukrainian soldiers have been trained so far in an undisclosed location outside Ukraine. More officers are scheduled to undergo training, which will also involve a 2-week M777 course. Why is the U.S. calling for caution? So far, the M777 155mm howitzer has been hailed for its role in the fight against Russia. However, the United States is wary of the potential danger of escalations if Ukraine uses the M777 howitzer to strike deep into Russian territory. To date, the most profound Ukrainian assault on Russian terrain was a strike on an oil depot in Belgorod. According to reports, 3 military officials from Washington have held a highly sensitive meeting with their Ukrainian counterparts to discuss the issue. We have concerns about escalation and yet still do not want to put geographic limits or ties into their hands too much with the stuff we're giving them, one of the U.S. officials said after the meeting. Nonetheless, there is a strong commitment from the U.S. and 40 other countries to maintain the steady supply of weapons and ammunition to Ukraine. According to CNN, Ukrainian officials are demanding more sophisticated weapons like the multiple launch rocket system and the M142 high mobility artillery rocket system, HIMARS. Recently, the U.S. Congress approved another $40 billion supplemental funding bill, which reportedly includes an $11 billion military aid package for Ukraine. It's left to be seen if this steady inflow of military and humanitarian aid will be enough to help Ukraine overcome the onslaught from Russia. What do you make of the M777 155mm howitzer artillery? Does it give Ukraine an advantage over Russia? Be sure to check out this video over here.